What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back with another preview video. This is going to be Game 3 of this week's Autumn Nations Cup. It is going to be Wales versus Italy. There's a lot to talk about. Let's get this game kicked off and let's talk about these teams. Alrighty, Dan Bigger's going to get us kicked off. So we are into the final weekend of the Autumn Nations Cup. This is going to be the battle for what even is this, 5th or 6th place, which is probably where Wales really should be ending up given their Six Nations performance and how they've played so far in this tournament. And Italy, of course, have not managed to shine brighter than they normally do. I did think they had a good chance against France last week, but unfortunately it was to no avail. But we will get on to Italy. Let's begin talking about Wales. Wales versus England went the way we all thought it was going to go. I was actually quite surprised that Wales managed to hold on quite as well as they did. They even showed signs of being able to show a bit of brilliance. Of course, that try coming very early on in the game for Wales, which was nice to see. But of course, they were always going to get chipped away. And to be honest, throughout the 80 minutes, I didn't really see a lot of points in time where really Wales were in control of that game. It felt very much like they defended nearly the entire game. I think the final thing ended at like 60-something% possession to England in that game, and it definitely felt like it. It felt like Wales were trying to firefight more than actually being the offensive team, and of course it went the way of England in the end. We all expected it to. I don't think Eddie Jones would have been particularly happy basically putting on a World Cup final team to face what is really probably a B-rated Wales team at the minute and not coming away with that win, but that was what was always going to happen. But actually there were a lot of positives to take away from that Wales game. It's just they came up against a team that they probably shouldn't be playing at that point, but I definitely think it was Wales is probably their best game of the tournament on the whole, actually, from in terms of how they played and how well they actually managed to gel together. Obviously they got a lot more of the normal players coming in from the Georgia game, but it was nice to see some of the new boys. So moving on to the Wales-Italy game, I've got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure on what this team is attempting to do. There's a lot of changes have been made from that England game. There's no real way to describe it. What I'll do is I'll check it on screen for you guys, super quick for you. So there's been a lot of changes in this, including in the forwards and the backs and who's playing. And just a quick look at this, generally, I might not go through all the players named here, but you can actually have a quick read through this list and sort of, I can't work out quite what this team is aiming to do. It seems to me to be basically a third of the standard players. You've got your Alan Wynne-Jones, your Justin Tipuric. Nice to see him back, by the way. Nice to know that he's actually okay. Josh Adams. They have about a third of the players seem to be standard Wales players that are in every 15s game. Then they've mixed it in with a third players of people coming in from nowhere. The lesser cap players, the Kieran Hardy, the Callum Sheedy, the Johnny Williams. So they're bringing in the new blood, which is nice. And I think that would have been a really nice toss-up to have the old guard with the new boys for this Italy team to see how well they can work out. But then they've added in some people that I don't quite understand the choices behind. And two for me really stand out here. George North, I don't really know why George North is still considered in this team. I think he's been brilliant in his career for Wales, but at the minute I think his form is just not there. I think he's had a good number of concussions, and I think if you look back when he used to play when he was 19, 20 without fear, he just used to run in and attempt to kill people. He was getting that try no matter what. I do think he's a little bit more standoffish now. He's lost his choice of playing left or right wing. He's had to sort of be subbed into that centre position, which I still don't think he feels very comfortable with, considering the number of centres that Wales do have available to them, especially a 13 over a 12. I don't really know why George North has been picked here. I don't know about Nick Tompkins if he's injured. To me, you could also go down a Corey Allen or an Owen Watkin, could even move to 13 and tell him that the centres need to learn to play more than one centre position. Another one for me is Taulupe Faletau. Everyone seems to absolutely love Taulupe Faletau, and again is another one of these people that has had brilliant form in the past for Wales, but currently I am seeing nothing really that stands out to me to make him a remarkable player. I saw it during the England game where it was no real glimmer of hope coming from Taulupe Faletau. I saw him have 3 knock-ons and give 2 penalties away himself, just for the commentators to say what a great game Taulupe Faletau's had, and I can't quite understand where people seem to still believe Taulupe Faletau is playing well. To me, I think you'd have Aaron Wainwright starting in that number 8 shirt, and it would be a much more cohesive front eight. To be honest, the front eight as a whole, Nicky Smith, Sam Parry, Tom Francis is not a bad front three. Will Rowlands is coming into his own at number 4. He seems to be almost becoming the main choice now for this tournament. Alan Wynne-Jones is always going to be at number 5. James Bothman's actually impressed me throughout the tournament. He's not been playing exceptionally, but he's been doing a solid job at number 6. It's nice to know that number 6 shirt is taken. Wales seems to have an awful lot of number 7s across the board, but you can't fill them all in at number 6, so it's nice to have a couple of choices at number 6. Justin Tipperick, as I said, is nice to have back in the team. Looking forward to seeing him hopefully being able to jackal the ball a little bit more and keep a scrum cap on without getting knocked out like he did against Georgia from that questionable arm swinging across. Talupe Faletau, again, I think I would have Aaron Wainwright there. Kieran Hardy is nice to see at number 9. Callum Sheedy at 10. So this is the partnership they were trying to bring in. It's nice to have a second choice 9 and 10 combo that I think can work well. Louis Rees-Zammit, who actually had a really good game in the Georgia game, and then he's didn't have the best game against England, but he did show off his defensive capabilities. Unfortunately for Rees-Zammit, he hasn't been able to have the space he would normally like to work with in order to show off just how brilliant he can be on the ball. Hopefully against Italy there'll be a little bit more space for him to open up and go a little bit wilder. Johnny Williams, of course, getting the try against England, which maybe a little bit undeserved given the game as a whole, but it was nice to see him get a try in a very low-capped player, and is playing very well at 12, and to be honest, he's replaced Hadley Parkes very well at that 12 position. George North, again, I think there's a variance of number 13s you could have there to start, and then maybe even have North come on from the bench to have a bit of an impact with his sort of weight and size and speed. Maybe you could do something from the bench, but I don't think I'd have had him starting. Josh Adams at 14, he's always going to be there. He's the solid winger. If people argue whether he's the best winger in the world at the minute, I think he's very, very good, and he's nice that he can play both the 11 and 14. And Liam Williams at fullback, nice to see him back after an apparent split lip that I didn't know he'd had in the Georgia game, which needed an awful lot of stitches. It's nice to see him back. We'll quickly look at the bench. Elliot Dee, who still doesn't get to start, even with Ryan Elias out. Why Elliot Dee doesn't start more games for Wales, I do not know. Wyn Jones and Leon Brown, again, another good front three. They're obviously going to think Italy are going to bring the power forwards in. Corey Hill, Aaron Wainwright, two great players to come on at some point during the game. Again, Corey Hill is another player I would have maybe even starting this. I would nice to actually see a game where you could have Corey Hill starting at 5 and bring Alan Wynne on halfway through the game, just to give someone else that choice and have him on the bench and see what impact Alan Wynne can make from the bench. But I don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon. Aaron Wainwright I rate very highly in most positions. He can play 6, 7 or 8. He's a great player. Gareth Davis will come on. It'd be nice to see Gareth Davis making a good appearance. Webb, again, is still not doing anything to impress me. So I'm very happy to see Gareth Davis on the bench rather than Rhys Webb. Johan Lloyd gets to have another chance. I was quite impressed with him when he did come on. Obviously, they're going to be wanting to get him on at some point during the game. And finally, Jonah Holmes, who just plays everywhere. So he's a bit of the super sub for the Wales team at the minute. On the whole, it's not a bad Wales team. I think, given that they're playing Italy, who aren't really playing their best rugby and with a couple injuries themselves, I think it's a solid team, and it's probably a winning team realistically from a Wales perspective. I think they'll be quite unhappy for this team to lose. But maybe Italy will be able to show up a little bit against what I still don't quite understand what Pivac wants to gain from this team. I don't know what happens here if Wales play good or bad in certain areas. To me, I think you know who your set guard are and who the new boys are, and I don't really understand the sort of middle-ish players. If something goes wrong, you don't really know whether that was the new boys' fault or the old boys' fault. I'm not 100% sure what his attack plan is for this one, but I can see Wales playing quite an expansive game for this one. I think up until now they've been quite limited, so hopefully they're able to get a little bit wider, get it to some of those wingers that have some brilliant skill in Wales, and it would be nice to see them being able to get a try or two. So let's talk about this Italy team coming to face them. So Italy faced France last week, and it was not the way I thought it was going to go. I thought France coming up against what is realistically on paper a C grade France team. I thought Italy were going to take full advantage of this and target this game with everything they had and not even worry about where they were going to come in this final, just to come away with a win against France. I don't really mind that it's a C Team France. A France team is still France, and they should have still really been able to turn up. There were glimmers of hope throughout the game. They definitely had a better first half than second half, and then in the second half it all began to fall away. Obviously, France came out with some players who had nothing to lose, and Italy had no real way of knowing what the game plan was going to be with so many changes coming in. And it was a shame to see they are missing a couple of players in that of Negri and Pellegrini still, which is a big blow for them. So I thought they were going to do a little bit better than they did, but they did have a relatively good game overall, but I definitely thought that could have been a game they could have actually won from this. So looking at this Wales game, well, what have Italy done to their team? I'll tell you what Italy have done to their team. Almost nothing. They believe the team that lost to a C-grade France is the set team they want to play probably a B team Wales with for this one, which is a little bit of a surprise. If you don't believe me, I'll put them both on screen for you guys now so you can see just how similar these teams are. In fact, the 1 to 8 is not even changed at all. Nothing has changed there in any way. All the changes are being made at the back for this Wales game. So they're obviously trying to mix it up a little bit. They haven't quite set their players where they want them to be. In fact, the bench is almost the same as well now that I'm looking at the two of them side by side. But let's have a look at this Italy team on its own for you guys so you can check it on screen. So, of course, this front 8 is exactly the same. Stein and Meyer actually had quite good games against France, but of course they are missing their 2 big ball carriers and 2 big turnover players, so it does implement a bit of damage for them in that 6 and 7 area, but they're still playing pretty well, and their scrums actually held up relatively good. Netty let down France an awful lot in that game, and I think they were quite happy for Fischetti to come away with a couple of penalties against their scrum. But looking at the backs, they've had a bit of a switch up here, so they've moved in Stephen Varney instead of Violi. I don't know why this is. This could have just been a switch because of injury, or they're just trying out something new. I think as the last game of the tournament, they need to be making the most of just getting some players some international time, especially against a Wales team that isn't performing at the highest standard and not a main team Wales that they'll be facing in the Six Nations. I think this is the time to try and make some changes and mix them up a bit. Garbisi still starting at that 10. We still haven't got to see a lot of Tommaso Alan because Garbisi is still doing so well. A change in number 11, we have Montana Ioane. I imagine it's pronounced. I actually don't know of him at all. So Sperandio is going to move. Sperandio is going to move from the left wing to the right wing. So they've mixed up again there, and then having Trula move from the right wing to the fullback. I still don't think they're completely set in how they want that back line to be. Obviously, Zanon and Canna are going to be there. They're set centre. They've got the 12 and 13 down, but they still haven't worked out where they want their wingers. Bellini still not managing to come back for this game, so they are down a little bit. So I think that left wing for Italy could be a bit of a loose one for them, especially coming against someone like Josh Adams. I think that could be a bit of a loose hole for them, and the potential for tries is there to open up. The bench is almost exactly identical to who it was against France. In fact, the only change is having Stephen Varney start at 9, and instead now they've got their new 21 in. But it's still a relatively strong Italian team. The fact that they played the France team with this and didn't come away with the result I think they would have wanted from that might move them on to playing a little bit tougher against Wales. They'll have a lot more to prove and a lot more to try and show off against this Wales team. I think they should have really done better against France, and I think they'll want to try and make the most of it. But what is my prediction for this game? I think I've still got to side with Wales on this. Yes, I am biased, but yes, I also know a little bit about rugby. I think the Wales team is looking much stronger than this Italian team. Even the new boys coming in for Wales seem to be having much more of an impact than some of the new names for Italy. I'm going to say this is going to be a Wales win, and I'm actually going to think it's going to be quite comfortable. I think with their backline not completely set and 2 very strong wingers for Wales, I think they're going to have a bit of a field day with this one. I'm going to say Wales to win by 21. I think they'll get 3 tries more than Italy. I think they're looking strong. I think it's going to be a great game, though. I'm looking forward to this game, probably second most after the Fiji versus Georgia game, which we're all looking forward to see. Who do you think is going to win, guys? Let me know down in the comments. I really enjoy reading your guys' comments. And if you have enjoyed this, make sure you leave the video a like and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all of the videos as they're coming out. I will see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.